Welcome to the Lauren Blackwell channel. So, is Oprah Winfrey really in the wrong, or are people reacting too quickly without knowing what is going on? I'm talking about the recent events that has Oprah trending, and it is regarding this 8.8 magnitude earthquake that started off the east coast of Russia and has triggered a tsunami in Hawaii. So suddenly it was all over the internet that Oprah Winfrey has a road that people need to get to high ground. She owns property in Maui, we all know this, but there's a particular road that will allow the people of that area to get to higher ground a lot faster. I heard someone say about 5 hours sooner than they would if they had taken the long route, because there's a lot of traffic building up, and the Oprah Road route is a shorter route that will let people get to safety a lot faster. And some people sound almost panicked, and it's understandable because it's a tsunami, for Christ's sake. It is headed towards them and they are trying to evacuate. So their panic is understandable. Some of the reports that we have heard are saying that the road is gated and they cannot get through without her permission, and she is refusing to let them through. Okay, refusing. So a lot of people got upset and they started to say a lot of negative things about Oprah, saying, how can she do this? How can she be so selfish at a time like this? I heard all of this very shortly after the evacuation advisory was issued. So I was like, is she refusing, or is this just the kind of delay that happens when you're not paying attention to something or you're not aware of something? As far as the accusations, a representative for Oprah have made a statement, and they said, as soon as we heard the tsunami warnings, we contacted local law enforcement and FEMA to ensure the road was opened. Any reports otherwise are fake. And they gave this to Fox News. So we are now hearing that the road has been opened and people are able to get through. It's just that they're only letting a few people through at a time, about 50 people, to just keep things in order and keep people safe and everything. And I understand why a lot of people have this negative opinion of Oprah now. It never used to be that way. She used to be highly respected, but things have changed a lot, and for many different reasons, which I'm not gonna go into in this video because it's just a whole lot of things that's been happening throughout the years. But I think that people's preconceived notion of certain people, like certain celebrities, can cause them to jump to these kinds of conclusions, like negative conclusions, without knowing the full detail of things. I heard someone say that there is a huge liability issue with letting people on your private property at a time like this, and I cannot agree more. So what a lot of people do not understand, before I even talk about the liability part, I want to talk about the delay. So when something like this happens, because there is no law that says during an emergency people can use private roads to get to safety, the people that need to get to safety are not able to just walk through someone's private property. And if there are notices that says restricted area for their own safety, they're not going to go to those areas, right? So they have to wait to be allowed to get through. That delay also happens on the part of the person who owns the property as well. There are certain things that you have to do when you own private property, when it's that kind of property where it is a long stretch of undeveloped land. There are no amenities. It's not a paved, clean, smooth road where there's a higher measure of safety, there is a certain way that you have to do things, especially if you're as wealthy as Oprah Winfrey. So you have to make sure that things are coordinated so that people are going where they need to go, because who is to say that there isn't some areas within the property that people can go and end up getting hurt, or perhaps there is some undeveloped parts of the road where their car can get stuck and it can create even more problems. So because of that, they needed to use law enforcement to direct people and to coordinate things, because when people are in a panic, things can go wrong very fast. And because it's her private property, she has to make sure that she tells the people that are over there, because I don't think she's there. Why would she be there when there's a tsunami advisory? So I don't think she's there. So she has to first of all be aware of the situation, and then she has to be aware that they need to use her property, and then she needs to notify the people that are able to coordinate the citizens to get through. And like, all of these things take time. I'm not speaking for her, I'm just saying there is a natural delay in things that I feel like, because people were panicked, they could not wait to get out, which is understandable, but they jumped to conclusion a little too fast. And we all know how bad news spreads like wildfire. When someone said, oh, Oprah is refusing to let people get through a property, probably because there's still a notice up there saying private property, do not trespass or something, that's gonna spread like wildfire, and people are going to jump on this bandwagon of just tearing down someone without knowing truly what is happening. But the point that I really want to talk about is this liability issue. Now, I know that when there's an emergency, everyone should be thinking about the safety of others and not be worried about getting sued. But in this day and age, getting sued for someone getting hurt on your private property can be a very big problem. If you have tons and tons of people going through your property without law enforcement or anybody there to coordinate the movement and to make sure that things go smoothly, anyone can make up anything later on and sue you for it. And this is something that people that own properties are hyper aware of, because it is not a completely developed land. There's going to be certain parts that can cause difficulties when people are driving through, or when there's a whole bunch of cars and one ends up getting stuck. Like I mentioned earlier, something could happen. Someone can get stuck, someone can fall, someone can trip, someone's car can suffer some kind of damage, and then they can make any sort of claim and she will be held liable for it. She could be sued, and this can cost her a lot. Liability is not something to like dismiss. It's something to be taken seriously when you're letting people use your property, especially if it's going to be tons of people over a short period of time and there is a natural disaster headed their way. So I am not surprised that Oprah and her team needed to take certain precautions before letting people in. You can't just post something on social media saying, oh, I have this road over here, you guys can just go over there and take that road. No, that's not how these things are done. You have to do things the right way to protect yourself. As much as we like to think that everybody else that aren't billionaires are amazing people and are just going about their daily lives just trying to survive, and the billionaires are the horrible ones, the fact of the matter is the possibility that someone will make up lies just to be able to sue Oprah Winfrey because they have grievances from something else that they may have heard about her or something else they may have experienced prior to this, that is a very real possibility, and that's chances that she simply cannot take. because we all know how these things go these days. One person files a lawsuit, another person becomes some sort of a witness and then decides to join in on the lawsuit, and it creates this chain of people that are accusing you of the same thing, and then it begins to look credible because there's a lot of people accusing you of something, and social media spreads it, and before you know it, it becomes your identity. People begin to believe it even though it never happened. I mean, how many times have we seen people do this on camera when they don't know they're being recorded? In a store, they would spill their own drink and then lay down and act as if they're hurt. So imagine how much easier it would be to do this when there's a natural disaster and there's a crowd. It's an open area where there's probably no cameras to capture it, and it's just you out there in nature and with cars everywhere, and a tsunami headed your way. It is very easy. It's very easy to sue someone. So it is possible that the liability aspect of it is what she needed to consider before letting people onto her property. Another thing that I heard people say is that it would be nice if there is a law that says when there is a natural disaster headed to an area, any private property there should be able to be used, at least the roads, not the houses or the farms or whatever, but the roads should be accessible if it will lead to safety. That makes a lot of sense, and I think that people who advocate for Hawaiians, The Rock, and there's a lot of people that have advocated for Hawaiian causes in the past, I think they need to take this on and make it a thing, so that not just Hawaii but anywhere where if there is a law that people cannot use private property, then when there's a natural disaster and that road can lead to safety, people should be able to use it without having to wait for an okay from somebody else. Because if there's a delay, like in this case, and people are panicked, you're waiting there, the tsunami is headed your way, it could be a wildfire, earthquake, you can't just wait for permission. You should be able to use a person's private property to get to safety. So if they can make that a law, I think it will help. It will go a long way to alleviate these kinds of things, especially in a place like Hawaii where natural disasters are quite common. They definitely should look into making that a thing. That's all I wanted to say on this Oprah issue. I just feel like too many people were just piling on and they're just going in and just tearing her down, and I'm like, I don't know, all of this is happening very fast. We got the news about the tsunami, and then now people realize that her private road is a good path to take, and before I knew it, everyone is just piling on with the negativity, and it's becoming a thing where they just pile on to a particular celebrity. So I was just wondering about it, and I thought, let me just make this video and see what other people think about it, because this whole piling on thing is getting to be a bit much. But yeah, it's been hours now since the road has been open for the locals to get through, and I'm glad they're able to get through. Hopefully they make it to safety. I think the evacuation orders have been lifted for some parts, so hopefully things will not be as bad as anticipated, and people can get to safety and no one loses their life. That's all I have on this. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.